Correct. And do you know who is feeding all this to the media? Is the CIA. The CIA is feeding them everything from videos to false narratives, and they're regurgitating it to the public. It influences the public, and it gets people in the Congress, some of them well-meaning, well-intentioned people, to go crazy in favor of give Zelensky whatever he wants. All they're doing is delaying the inevitable.
Yep. Delaying the inevitable. You know, that is the word here, because nobody wants to talk about that Russia's going to win at some point. And they just had their victory parade this past Monday to celebrate the end of World War II, in which some 25 million Russians were killed by the Nazis, by Hitler. And who were the first people to defeat the Germans? The Russians, after 25 million of them were killed. And so to think that Ukraine, with 40 million people, fighting the Russians with 140 million people and much more advanced technology, are going to win, it's sick. And by extending this war and keeping it going, they're making a very bad situation much worse. So, Judge, what do you think is going to happen with this as it relates to the United States and NATO going face to face with Russia?
Well, if Donald Trump were in the White House, we would be telling NATO to take a hike. You're a post-World War II relic. We don't need you anymore. We're not going to give you a nickel. You guys can defend your own borders. But Donald Trump is not in the White House. The State Department is back to its globalist ideology. I almost said theology, because it almost is a religion with them. They're going to continue to try and wear down at Vladimir Putin. They want this war extended because they want Putin to be undermined by somebody in his inner circle.
Yeah.
Mark my words, the goal of the American government is to degrade Vladimir Putin, and they will use the lives of innocent Ukrainians in order to achieve that goal. I don't know if Joe knows this, but certainly the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, and the National Security Advisor, Mrs. Clinton's former confidant, Jake Sullivan, they know it because they're orchestrating it.
Yeah, and they're not going to do anything. It's not going to affect it. The Russians are going to be standing by their president, just like the stupid people stood behind George W. Bush when he launched the Iraq War, the Afghan War. Oh, that was a success, you know. The Russians have been at this for 7 weeks, 8 weeks, but they're losing. But America had a great success in Afghanistan. They were only there for 20 years. And it was, wonderful victory. And going back to Trump, as much as I can't stand him because of his narcissistic ways and his BS, I totally agree with you that if he was president, this would have never happened. Number one, I don't think. And number two, about NATO. But here's the number three about NATO. If you listen to Mario Draghi, the Prime Minister of Italy, the former guy that was with the Bank of Italy, with the World Bank, ran the Goldman Sachs Western Division of doing deals, and European Central Bank head that's now playing the head of the Prime Minister of Italy. He wants to unify bigger with NATO, and Macron came out this week as well in France that he wants to unify Europe more as well.
Well, the Tony Blinken ideology is shared. I don't know if Boris Johnson is in this group or not. He's got his own issues, but it's pretty much shared by the leaders of Western Europe. And this ideology is ultimately one world government. I don't think they believe it's going to happen in their lifetimes, but they're willing to take baby steps in that direction. There are a few things more dangerous to personal liberty than the concept of one world government. And there are a few things actually more dangerous to the security of Europe than threatening Vladimir Putin. Trade with him, make the Russians richer. Where goods cross borders, armies don't. When the Russian people realize their lives will be better in a peaceful environment.
Well, what you're saying is that, this one world government, I'll never forget when they all did away with their own currencies and went to the euro.
Yes.
And the reason that they gave? Because I knew a number of Europeans, that were like a little younger than my parents, and they said that they were doing it because if there was one currency, then there wouldn't be war.
Ugh.
That was the excuse that they gave, because to go back, I mean, the 20th century isn't ancient history. It's, you have World War I, what ends in 1918, 1939, a couple of years later, they're at it again, destroying Europe. So the line that they fed the people was that with one currency, there would be unity and there wouldn't be war. So when you talk about baby steps, these aren't baby steps. These are big steps. Because when they went to the euro, the whole standard of living in Europe declined.
Yes.
Inflation skyrocketed for the poorer countries. The Germanys got richer and everybody else went down. So I don't think this is a baby step. I think the one world government now is going to be really a push, and it's going to get stronger and stronger as Draghi's talking about it, Macron's talking about it, and the hate Russian narrative is going to keep building.
The government will continue to beat the drum on the hate Russia narrative, mainly hate Putin, because when the government can focus the American animus on an enemy, then the people are generally more pliant. The enemy was Hitler, the enemy was the Soviet Union, the enemy was Iran, the enemy was Iraq, the enemy was COVID. Now the enemy is Putin. The government loves that.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if old Joe understands what he's talking about, but certainly the people around him do.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is my greatest fear is that World War III has begun. And again, World War I didn't happen when, they assassinated the Archduke of Ferdinand in Sarajevo. That's the story they give you. I think it was building up to the lunacy that was going on before that. And I really believe that with the hatred going on, and it is very important as well, the hatred going on, and there's no talk about peace.
No. The Pope, believe it or not, for all of his issues, did make a statement, not quite as strong as Celente or me or those who agree with us, but the Pope did make a statement condemning war. He didn't condemn either side. He just condemned war, and he spoke about this war in general. I don't say that to defend the Pope. I just say it to clarify the record.
Yeah, but where are the peace movements? Where are they?
There are no peace movements.
No.
At this point in the Vietnam War, and I was a college student then, the peace movements were everywhere and were in your face.
And you know why? Because they were drafting us.
Correct.
Once they did away with the draft, there were minor movements against the Iraq War and the Afghan War because people aren't being drafted.
Right.
But they're robbing us of our money and our freedom. And you're a judge of freedom and a man of peace, and you really know your judicial, what should be, what shouldn't be. You're a defender of the judicial rights. So thank you so much for being on, Judge. And we really have to get a movement going for peace, because if there's not peace on earth, it'll be hell on earth.
Yes, agreed, Gerald. Thanks for having me on. All the best.
And thank you.